Welcome to This Explainer. We're diving right into something called the illusion of momentum, specifically diagnosing the man of many boats. Now, usually, when we try to diagnose a problem, we're looking for clinical precision, right? Like spotting a fracture on an x-ray, it's binary, the treatment is totally clear. But today, we're jumping headfirst into a really murky but highly relatable behavioral mystery. It's this hidden condition that just plagues high achievers. And honestly, wrapping your head around it might literally change how you look at your daily routine forever. So let me just ask you a super direct question right off the bat. Have you ever felt like you're working at absolute maximum capacity, but you're going completely nowhere? You know the exact feeling I'm talking about. You're crushing your daily to-do list, crossing every single item off with that satisfying little click of the pen. You're generating this immense amount of forward thrust just through sheer effort. But somehow, your actual life, it just isn't moving forward. It's a very specific, deeply frustrating brand of exhaustion. Well, that specific exhaustion is exactly what we're diagnosing today. It's this modern condition we call the illusion of momentum. It's that deceptive, sneaky feeling of generating thrust through endless little microtasks, but without actually gaining any real ground. To figure out why this happens, and more importantly, how to cure it, we're going to use this brilliant, really short, fable-like text sent in by a listener. It's called The Man of Many Boats. By stripping away all the messy real-world contexts, this little text actually acts as a perfect mirror for our own structural flaws. Okay, let's dive into this. The text opens up with our baseline condition. It says, once upon a time, a man used to live his life in a village. Seclusion was his strength. Day after day, he used to plan things. I am absolutely fascinated by this framing. I mean, think about it. In most contexts, we kind of pathologize isolation, don't we? We view being secluded from the village, from the community, as a strictly negative thing. But right out of the gate, this story spins that. It defines his seclusion not as a weakness, but actually as his ultimate superpower. Think of his seclusion in modern terms. It's basically like putting your entire life on airplane mode, when you just sever your connection to the group chats, the endless emails, the immediate demands of the village. You unlock a profound level of deep focus. You create all this mental bandwidth that's necessary for brilliant, uninterrupted planning. But, and it's a big but, that airplane mode creates a really dangerous echo chamber. By cutting himself off, he completely loses his feedback loop. Because let's face it, every single idea sounds absolutely brilliant when there's literally no one around to give you a reality check. You see, a village naturally introduces friction. People are going to question your motives, critique your methods, offer all sorts of unsolicited advice. And yeah, that friction can be deeply annoying when you're just trying to execute a vision. So our protagonist just bypasses it altogether. But here is the critical flaw. Friction is also the exact thing that gives us traction. It's exactly like trying to drive a car on a sheet of pure ice. The tires can spin incredibly fast because there's absolutely no resistance, right? But the vehicle itself, it doesn't actually go anywhere. Because his fortress of deep focus totally lacks windows, his overarching strategy is just broken without him even realizing it. The text presents this brilliant, kind of heartbreaking tension. It says, when it used to come of performing things, he was successful to a great extent, but no matter how he tries, he used to fail. Unpacking this paradox, this idea of the successful failure, is honestly mind-blowing. It's exactly like getting an A+ on every single pop quiz, but still failing the entire semester. Why? Because you enrolled in the wrong class to begin with. Now, what's really interesting about this is the biological mechanism driving that contradiction. It's a little thing called action bias. Evolutionarily speaking, we are hardwired to prefer doing something, anything, over doing nothing. Especially when we're facing massive, ambiguous, stressful goals like, improving our lives. To alleviate that stress, our brain naturally gravitates toward highly defined, easily performable microtasks. And every single time you check a box, your brain releases this deceptive little hit of dopamine. It perfectly masks your overarching failure. Basically, your own biological reward system is tricking you into feeling productive. So he's using motion as a substitute for direction. And this draws a stark, really important line between performing and achieving. Or to put it another way, efficiency versus effectiveness. This man has absolutely mastered efficiency, which, let's remember, is just the speed at which you complete a task, but he entirely lacks effectiveness, which is whether you're even doing the right task to begin with. His total reliance on these super efficient micro-successes creates this thick smoke screen. It completely prevents him from seeing the bigger picture. And here, right here, is exactly why he's failing on the macro level. The text diagnoses it perfectly. It says he wanted to be good at many things, and he used to try to pedal many boats at a time, and it is not possible. I want you to notice the definitive physical boundary there. It doesn't say managing multiple lives is, exceptionally difficult, or that he just needs to download a better time management app. No, it firmly, explicitly declares that it is not possible. This is such a direct challenge to the intense cultural narratives we are constantly fed today. I mean, we live in an era that totally glorifies the flawless multi-hyphenate, right? We feel this immense, crushing pressure to paddle all these modern boats simultaneously. You're supposed to be a successful founder, a prolific artist, a fitness optimizer, and a perfect parent, all before noon. So take a second and audit your own life right now. Which of these boats are you actively trying to straddle, absolutely terrified that letting go of even one of them would make you a personal failure?
But straddling those boats, it absolutely destroys us. And it all comes down to this thing called the cognitive switching penalty. See, every single time you shift your focus from one entirely different life goal to another, you leave a little residue of attention behind. Think of your brain kind of like a computer's RAM. You might have this incredibly powerful processor, sure, but if you open 50 super heavy applications at the exact same time, the cooling fan spins out of control, the whole system overheats, and your actual output drops to absolute zero.
The energy you disperse across multiple vessels moving in entirely different directions, it simply cancels itself out. And his reaction to this sinking feeling, oh man, it is agonizing to witness. The text says, still the man couldn't understand the problem. He kept on doing what he's doing to improve, and the story remained the same. This is the dark side of persistence, folks. It's literally like watching someone stand in front of an elevator, press the button, and when the doors don't open, they just keep mashing that same disconnected button harder and faster. They're burning immense calories for absolutely nothing. So the crucial point here is that his identity is now entirely tied to his effort. For him to actually understand the problem, he'd have to admit that his foundational strengths are the very things causing his failure. He's totally trapped by the sunk cost fallacy. He has invested so much time and energy trying to paddle all these different boats that the psychological pain of admitting that investment was wasted, it's just too great to bear. He genuinely believes the universe operates on this ledger of suffering. Like, if he just suffers enough, it's going to eventually pay off. But here's the harsh truth. The universe doesn't care how hard you press a disconnected button. The man thinks he's improving, right? Because he's adding more effort within his existing system. He's pedaling faster. He's planning longer. But true improvement isn't about just dumping more effort into a frustrating loop. No, it often requires entirely dismantling the system. You simply cannot fix a directional problem with sheer velocity. Let's move to see how this builds into an actionable solution. To break out of this frozen state, this awful feeling of being the absolute hardest worker with zero net gain, you have to do a few things. First, you've got to stop the motion entirely. Just stop. Second, evaluate the actual direction you're headed, which means exposing yourself to the friction of reality. And third, you must make the really painful choice of which boats you are going to let sink. Success here doesn't require more willpower. It requires strategic subtraction. Look, we all crave that flawlessly executed to-do list, don't we? The one that leaves us completely exhausted but feeling, so productive at the end of the day. But we have to challenge that desire. Actually, scratch that. We have to defeat it. Maybe the ultimate goal tomorrow isn't to finish the list at all. The true achievement is having the courage to cross out half the items before you even begin. You have to actively, intentionally let those extra boats drift away. That is the only way you can finally grab the oars and sail the one vessel that actually matters. Now remember, the listener's story was explicitly labeled Part 1, and that implies a necessary evolution for our character, right? If Part 1 is the incredibly painful realization that you cannot paddle many boats at once, and that relying on a flawed strategy is just going to yield the exact same frustrating results over and over, then what on earth happens in Part 2? So I want to leave you with this lingering question to audit your own ambitions today. Think about it really hard. What must you sacrifice in your Part 2 to finally move forward?